Hello to the TOC meeting, 15th of July. We have the agenda to go over the action items from last week. We will get an update from the application runtime interfaces working group, review the PRs issues, RFCs we have, and talk about any other business. Okay, action items last week. Okay, we didn't have any last week, so we can then start with the update. Greg, I hope you are prepared.
Uh, uh, that's very ominous.
It's all good. We can postpone to next week if you.
No, it's fine. I'm fine to talk about it. I don't know if I'll survive the trials, but I can give an update on what's been going on in the working group.
Okay.
Uh, I guess uh, this may overlap some with the RFCs that we review, but there's a number of open RFCs. There's Stephan's RFC that's progressing about having service credential rotation or binding credential rotation. There's also the RFC that Florian had opened, talking more about, well, a number of stack enhancements, including user managed stacks, which was split up into, or based on feedback, was split up into multiple more specific RFCs dealing with, yeah, improvements to how Cloud Foundry handles stacks. I guess separate from all that, on the Cappy side, uh, there, since I believe since the last working group update, there's been progress on finalizing the integration with the cloud native build packs. So including those by default, and then uh, making a number of improvements to the management of uploading custom cloud native build packs and stuff like that within Cappy. And then separately from that, also, there's been an effort to add more control over system users for application containers. So making it so that there's more consistency between what users different phases of the app lifecycle run as, and then also adding the ability to override what system user a application or process runs as. Now, this I think overlaps some with the stack, thinking about stacks, because the user needs to exist on stack in order to be able to run processes of those. So the original driving incident for this was on the Windows side. Uh, Windows has some requirements about uh, what users different operations run as in order to take advantage of certain enterprise Windows features. Uh, like, for instance, managing permissions for connecting to Windows SQL databases, for instance, uh, expects you to be running as a like special Windows container user. Uh, but theoretically, this could be used for other stacks also. If you wanted to have a custom stack that had a user other than vcap or root or something like that, and that had some significance to that stack. So that's been an effort going on the Cappy side. I guess separate than that, the like we covered last week in the TOC, there's been uh, efforts across the working group to reduce cloud costs. So, uh, we went into a lot of the details last week, so I'm not going to rehash a lot of that stuff. But in general, efforts to uh, reduce long-running jobs, replace them with ephemeral or timed out jobs, and then moving things to cheaper regions. I guess Also, as we discussed last week, a substantial chunk of our remaining cloud costs are still coming from operating our own concourse. So, uh, we're still potentially interested in uh, savings that we could get from moving to a concourse that we're not hosting ourselves. Though, that said, we are in the process of either it already happened or it's about to happen, migrating our concourse to a cheaper region. So at least in the short term, it'll be marginally cheaper to operate.
Yeah, it's already running in the cheaper region.
Perfect.
Since 1 or 2 hours.
There we go. And the savings are already piling up.
Yes, I could add a few minor things. We, let's say, polished the file-based service binding story. You can now specify the application feature flags in the manifest. That's a new feature. IPv6, there were some gaps finished with this ICMPv6 protocol that needs to be specified in ASGs. And yeah, some improvements in the worker handling threads, thread-based workers that has now all been rolled out and can be considered as stable production ready. And I think that's basically it. We have started, maybe that's interesting to think about a replacement for the fog libraries. That's for us especially driven by Fog Azure, which is out of maintenance since a year. Meanwhile, so the underlying SDKs are not maintained anymore. We need a replacement here, and there is an idea to use an implementation that has been done by the Bosch team for a similar reason. It's currently a POC running, and we are writing up the proposal into an ADR, and then we'll probably join soon the foundational infrastructure working group meeting to discuss this in more detail and to see how cooperation can work here out. But it looks promising. Yep, I would say that's it.
Okay, I try to keep the notes up to date. Yeah.
Is that the Blobster CLI that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna be shelling out from Ruby to a Go
Exactly.
binding.
Yeah. There are some concerns regarding performance, but that is still under investigation. But there are also some performance gains compared to the Ruby implementation. So.
You win some, you lose some.
Based on which criteria you selected the concourse region, which you migrated now?
The coarse-grained region is simply by cost. And then the more fine-grained region was a very short discussion that we said, well, let's say US East seems to be in the middle between Europe and US West. And that's it. So no, no sophisticated evaluation.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds reasonable.
We checked only GCP, and the pricing in all the different US regions is always the same. And
yeah. Are there any other questions? No, then thank you for the update. We can proceed with the next point in the agenda, reviewing PRs, RFCs. Okay, PRs. The first one is about the branch protection rules for service management working group. So we said last week we want to wait about this easy CLA.
Yeah, I mean, in principle, it's fine to merge it like it is. There would be no technical issue. I was just surprised that we have to specify this easy CLA because normally it's not needed and it's not part of the generated jobs, and still the check runs. I think it's configured globally on org level, and there would be no reason to repeat it, but it also does no harm.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not block this.
Yeah, we can. I will just.
Ruben wants his RFC to be merged.
I see. I see.
Okay. Yeah. Income correct. In the meantime, Chris, do you know how easy CLA is configured? Chris Clark.
I mean, sort of. I don't exactly know how it would
Is
apply
it
here.
global? Is it a global setting for the Cloud Foundry org? Or
I think so, yeah.
we've been wondering that.
Yeah, you don't have to, it automatically reads new repositories and adds it to it.
Yeah.
Is it? I think it's installed as an app, right?
Yes.
So that means the configuration here, so because there are people adding this as special configuration in the branch protection, it's not required. This was.
It might be. It might be that it's doing that by itself.
So
But I don't know.
Yeah, the easy CLA check is added to your projects, even if you don't have any required status checks configured in the branch protection, because that's a standard by the automatically generated branch protection rules. There is no required status check. And even if you go through this list, manually configured things, and there are repositories where the status checks are manually configured and they don't have easy CLA included, but the PRs, this job shows up, and so I would say it comes in automatically, but it also doesn't harm if you add it. Yeah.
The app has read access to issues, members, merge requests, and reads, and write access to administration commit statuses, pull requests, and repository hooks. That's the app side of it.
Need an AI to translate this to.
As in, like, the OAuth permissions that we have given to that app, right? Like, it's an app running somewhere, and it has a token to perform these actions on our GitHub organization.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's doing, like, if it's making changes in the at the repo level or not. We have an audit log. But please continue.
Yeah. So this one I think is still blocked. Yeah, we requested some changes last time. Yes, it's still blocked. Inactive user, we have to wait another week. So there's, we have to wait 2 weeks. Now, the RFCs, I can start from top to bottom. The service credential binding rotation for apps.
I updated it today, and I hope that I have addressed now all.
Ruben commented.
Wait, what's that? 8 minutes ago.
Ruben scooped you.
Oh, you are.
Too late to the party. Yeah.
I saw that comments that I didn't submit my review yet. So. But nothing major. Like, I think it's a good direction, or like almost done. It's just like I was wondering about the DDoS. Like, what's the
that was a discussion about. The RFC says that the number of multiple service credential bindings should be limited to an configurable limitation. And Greg asked, well, why? Is there a reason for it? And we had internally, since a long time, a discussion that there are certain resources, for instance, Spaces is a very prominent example that has no quota and no limit. That means that even a, let's say, trial user on a foundation that is public can tear down the landscape, at least in theory, by creating infinite number of, or not an infinite, and a very high number of spaces until the landscape breaks. And if we introduce something new, we always think about, is there a limit, or we don't want to have unbound resources, because then you can create additional, an infinite amount of number of bindings, while the number of services is limited, or at least there's a quota. Of course, you can set it to unlimited, but there is a means to limit the amount of services that you can have in your space. And by that, you can also limit the number of service bindings to your apps. At least there's an upper number.
But you can also clean them up, right? So
yeah, but I'm now thinking about a denial of service attack, right? If I clean up, everything is fine. But what if I want not to clean up? What if I want to?
Yeah,
break
no,
you?
but like, are we expecting that we run out of database, like that we overwhelm the database, or do we expect these requests to be?
The number, the CF API requests are rate limited, but of course you can set up a job and then overwhelm the database. Insert records
Honestly,
like hell into
the
tables.
broker would probably fall apart first from trying to generate all those credentials.
Yeah,
right. But
it's quite theoretical.
yes, indeed, like with Spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was mostly just curious if there was already limits in place for the number of bindings that an app could have, or the number of bindings that could be generated for a service. But I guess historically, since we didn't allow stacking up bindings on an individual app, there was some like de facto limit just based on the number of apps you had available.
And mostly we introduced this feature for binding rotation, and you shouldn't need many versions, or yeah.
Yeah, but then shouldn't the limit just be 2?
Yeah, nobody ever needs more than 64K of whatever you want. So I would not go for 2 because personally, if I would use this feature, I would go for 10 or something like that, and then run a regular cleanup job, and with a keep alive 3 or 4 in case something is wrong with my CI process. If I have a perfect CI, I need 2 and not more.
Maybe we can hash this out in the comments. Should we let Derek talk real fast before he disappears again?
Yeah. So that means the concourse
inbox. Yeah. I don't necessarily have something I need to say. I wanted to just say that this was here in Beyhan. Definitely blew my mind this morning, reminding me that y'all have powers to like edit other people's comments. And I was like, wait, I didn't put that link there for viewing. But that's fine and very useful. But yeah, So this is RFC for shared concourse. Admittedly, this is the first RFC I've put forward in this group, so feel free to just, tell me where I need to be more expressive or detailed on certain things, and I'm happy to do that. But yeah, wanted to note that this was up there.
Yeah, thanks for opening the RFC and for this initiative.
What's this role in the concourse working group to administer? Is that aligning with the existing roles we have?
In our working group, right? So right now, the concourse working group doesn't have, it just has the execution leads and I think one other area right now for contributors. So I just
So you're going to
note
create a
that.
separate area for people to get access to administer? Because that's what we have in the foundational infrastructure working group. For example, we have a stem cell CI area, and people that have access there, they can administer or have more rights in our concourse to deal with stem cell pipelines.
That was the intent for at least the concourse working group, and obviously that's also described in the shared administration principles that I'd like other working group leads or areas to have some folk that have similar administration permissions to self-resolve issues, because there's many folks that are very capable in this community of managing and running a concourse. So I don't want to be overly restrictive of who has capabilities to resolve problems as they come up throughout their working weeks.
Hey, Ruben,
will happen.
In the concourse that you currently have access to, how are you? Is that a concourse that is shared with other groups? And if so, how are you managing the secrets then?
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, I mean, it is shared with different areas, and I think docs. So it's the areas within the foundational infrastructure working group, and then docs also got access because they needed something.
Sure.
So there is no, and one reason why we are not giving everybody access is because of credential management, right? So currently, if docs need to change something, they would have to reach out to one of us from like that are managing the concourse. So it's not self-service for them, but it's not coming up that often, so it's doable. But for this, we would need a more solid solution, right? So you basically need a mapping from working groups or working group areas to teams. And you need some sort of like all-out credential management stuff, which is also aware of that, right? With namespaces and everything. I think that can be done, but I don't know if automation exists to make that work.
Off the shelf automation, no. There's a bit of like things you need to do to keep remapping like those. At least the way I've seen people solve some of this in the past is around running automation that keeps vault and concourse teams like consistent with one another on mappings and access, where the concourse one is often the source of truth in terms of like the GitHubness, and then you map that back to the vault access.
From an operational point of view, I would recommend using CredUp because you can just use Postgres as a backend and don't have to deal with clustering. And
can I do that same thing with CredHub?
Yeah, I think CredHub has pods that there's ways to limit who has access to a certain pod. But that area, I think the credential management part is quite important. So it would be good to have that more fleshed out in this RFC.
Okay. If you have specific suggestions,
I will.
I think I have an idea of how I can fiddle that with Vault. I have less of an idea of how I'd fiddle that with CredHub. So if you want to add that into
I can leave some pointers. But yeah, and also the just operating Vault is annoying. Like like when it goes down, you have to go unlock it, and how are you going to share that secret and everything like that.
Fair.
And like if you have a single database for your credentials or for your secrets from CredHub and or single Postgres instance or something, managed Postgres instance like from GCP, I think that makes it easier to operate.
Yeah, I mean, our Vault instance on the Concourse working group right now is actually just hooked up to GCS. It's not even a database.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's also an option.
It's kind of hot, right?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, yeah. Good discussions. Yeah, they can continue on the RFC. Is there anything else to? Sorry, I switched back.
Any ideas on like onboarding? Would be nice to have that also in here, right? Like so, access is being
So
mentioned.
there's some section below about talking about onboarding this phase too.
Would also help, especially if Vault is chosen over GitHub, then maybe have an example for a typical use case, spin up a bubble environment and destroy it again. Because here, that also relies on GitHub for credentials and certificates a lot. And I don't know if Vault can do that or not.
Sorry, by that, do you mean like pipelines can bubble up an environment and then shove that into the Concourse's credential management system and so on and so forth?
So I think that's like using CredHub as a service directly, right? So it's basically not, so it's not relying on the Concourse credential manager.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a
that sounds
not necessarily, but then you need another instance of a CredHub. So in our setups, it's typically a shared CredHub that is then also the source for.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that I'm not sure as.
But what I want to say is a typical use case is cuts, running cuts, things like that. CF deployment in application runtime interfaces. I guess in every working group, you need a running Cloud Foundry for running your tests, at least for the integration tests, and to demonstrate a setup how that could be done. I don't want to say that it has to work exactly the same as in the past, but yeah, there are these Concourse tasks for bubbling up an environment and shutting it down, and that such a scenario can be demonstrated.
But it's done like this. So you bubble up, and then the state, the credentials of that, the output of the bubble up are stored in CredHub. Is that what, and being retrieved later? Is that what's done?
I think so, yeah. And that includes also the certificate generation, where I'm not sure whether this is a specific feature of CredHub. But can be tried out.
Yeah. From an onboarding point of view, I was more thinking about like in the future when teams want to onboard, it would be nice that there are some like concrete instructions in here, right? This gets approved, right? So like make this issue or this pull request against this file. Like typically for these automation things, we have some sort of state file where we keep such like in this repo, right? Like thinking that through a bit would be good.
Yeah, I think it would probably be a little loose in the RFC to start, just because like part of the onboarding, the precise, right? Like I think some of those things might shift as we figure out that implementation. But I agree, since that'll match up with the whatever is the source of truth, right, for team membership, and therefore also how that flows into the credential management will inform quite a bit about like what exactly a user should have to do to onboard. in terms of
Yeah.
update RFC.
Yeah,
Or,
I
sorry,
think like
update and pull
just
request.
a proposed schema for such a file, right? Like, and what
Yep.
are the, because
Yeah.
that informs us what are the features, like what's opt-in,
Yep.
what's default, like those types of things.
Yep.
I think that would be good.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks. We can continue then with the other RFCs. About the credential bindings, so should about the rate limit here. We can continue commenting, or should we discuss this?
Continue commenting. That's
Mhm.
just offline, no problem.
Yeah. So I've been planning to start the final comment period, but we have notes and comments.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also happy to start the final comment period, right? Like, it's not that these are not big changes, right?
Yeah,
Like,
these seem like pretty final comments to me.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. If you are all fine, we can start the.
Yeah, let's not lose another week on this. So it's already been open for quite a bit.
Okay, we can proceed with the other RFCs. The branch protection. Have already approvals on that. Do we need here a final comment period or just?
Sure. I mean, we already waited.
Yeah, we waited quite.
2 weeks. So, but I mean, I'm fine with a final comment period. I probably should have said that in that 2 weeks ago thing. But yeah, we can do another week. That's fine.
Sorry, when I read through it this morning, it looked complete, which is why I had approved it.
Yeah, it was a modification of an existing RFC, right? It was not a complete full, and most of the part is implementation.
Okay, this one there was some some misunderstanding, I think, and looks like yeah, this is just not clear in the documentation how to implement this use case, and yeah, we had some internal discussions with the colleagues. Yeah, most probably we don't need an RFC here.
I got a question. Is the goal with this one that we'll close this one out, or that we'll ask for the documentation to be a little clearer, or
That doesn't need a.
kind of trying to figure out where
RFC.
we were going with this one.
You don't need an RFC for a docs change.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So we didn't. So there was a comment already by Stephan. But yeah, we can ask people. I can mention this since we can put here. Yeah. Yeah. I think they are planning to improve the docs. But yeah, the idea is to close the RFC.
Cool.
Here, so the still open change requests. If you didn't have time to check on this, you can do that.
So I had a little discussion with Pascal and Jovan, and it also looks like this will be more, or it's not a real RFC in the sense that anything need to be changed somewhere in components. It will be documentation, and the concept doesn't allow for additional real validations. If you want to have something like a validation of the headers that are configurable, then you would have to provide a service broker that does just, let's say, deals with the correct configuration of the syslog drain configuration and provide, yeah. It's also not a real service broker. It's just something that would take over configuration in a structured or easy to understand form and then provide the correct information that is then passed over to the syslog drain binding. Would be surprised if here something else comes out. But yeah, let's see what the colleagues think. And
the next one is about re-implementing the VirtualBox CPI with libvirt. There are some questions still on the discussion. I think it's too early to do something here. And the last one in progress is about stack handling, stack management. I've been looking into this. My personal opinion is that the last part shouldn't be in the RFC. Deals with a different concern, like how the community decides to build the next, to support the next Ubuntu long-term release version. And the other two, they are related, but the scope is quite, to discuss in one RFC, the scope is also, yeah, I don't know, what's your opinion on this?
yeah, I wrote mine down, and I also share it should be split up in two RFCs for the two real technical proposals, and the yeah, provide a stack with every Ubuntu LTS is not a good fit for an RFC. At the end of the day, it's a question of who gets the hands to the keyboard and commits the time and resources to it, and maybe it's better to do that repeatedly on the concrete. Next thing, like this RFC, I don't know which number for FS5 that we have now. Other one, it's an endless thing, and yeah, that was my comment that I've written. And I also don't like the idea to shell out into discussion forums to, I mean, here the RFC process clearly says we should discuss on this in this PR, so that, yeah, also later, if you want to understand the discussion, it's easier, less likely that parts get deleted or changed after the RFC has been accepted.
Yeah, I think a good rule of thumb is like, can these things be accepted independently, right? Like, and if they can, then they should, right? Because you want to merge the smallest thing possible. Like that should at least cause the least amount of friction, right? Because it would be not great if one of these proposals gets stuck because there's something controversial in another proposal, right? Like, and that I think is why you want it to be separate.
Yeah, I've been looking through the RFC and wanted to comment already, but some parts should go into the discussion. And the other one was direct comment in the PR, so I didn't want to branch into different places. That's why I said, okay,
Yeah,
clarify how we proceed here. And okay, I will write a comment and talk to Florian. Yeah. Can see how it goes. There is already a comment. Oh, I missed it. Okay. Then I can talk to Florian tomorrow. We are sitting each next to other. Next to each other.
Yeah, maybe just for us, for the TOC, maybe we can amend the README a bit and talk about thoughts how big an RFC should be. So it's difficult. You cannot say an RFC should be so many lines or should be implemented in a year, but something like it should be the smallest independently manageable thing, and you should strive for smaller, realistic stuff instead of run the world better, to make a very bad example.
It's in general true for open source pull
Yeah.
requests, right? Like that's the point.
Sure, but I'm a bit surprised about this discussion here, especially with Florian.
Okay. But general about the suggestions in the RFC, do you have any concrete feedback?
Yeah, I don't like using discussions either. I think it just should be separate PRs, RFCs, and I think so. I think Stephan, you're saying that it's basically three, right? 3 RFCs, and then but one of them is actually shouldn't be an RFC. It's not right. So it's. I think in my thing there were 4, so that's basically 2 are combined into one, and then another separate one, and then one should be discarded basically, or discussed in the context of an RFC that talks about an upcoming release, not about like an precedent or trying to establish a pattern for how we're dealing with these things in the future, because that depends on resource availability and everything, right? Like we cannot predict the future, and we don't manage resource allocation as in people, right? That's not something that the RFC or the TOC does.
Yeah, so from the technical side, I like the idea with the stack management and the CF API, so that a clearer communication and technically enforceable communication can be established, because that's the usual problem. I mean, you can talk about deprecations as long as you want. What helps are rate limits and failed staging operations. That's the matter of fact, I would say. And bring your own stack is then a possibility to deal with, let's say, escalations. The technical content looks nice and clever, but I can also understand that it takes a little bit away of the underlying basic idea of Cloud Foundry, where the stack management is clearly something that the platform brings to you. And I'm not really sure whether the effort is really worth it, but can be discussed on the RFC. I understand where this use case comes from, because that's very yeah, we experience that ourselves. On the other hand, there are already solutions like tell the customer, take a Docker container, then you can use your old library if there's really a hard need. It is effort for this customer that the customer doesn't want to do, because maybe there are no developers anymore, the source code is gone, things like that, all that happens. And but it is a valid answer, right? If you really want to take insecure applications live in a cloud, then it has to hurt. And that's why you have to rewrite your application. That would be an answer that I tend to write into tickets.
You have a template for
yeah.
it. automatically responds.
But looks like we have an agreement on that. And
Mhm.
okay, and there is a new one about hash-based routing. So yeah, there are some discussions already. Okay, Chris, I did also some questions. Yeah, this is still in progress then, I think.
Yeah, part of this could just be me not understanding what they're trying to get done here. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It's just the problem space that they brought up was, trying to support tenancy with customer applications. And all I can think in the back of my head is why not just deploy a separate app instance, one per customer, and then you don't have to worry about muxing all of your database connections and then having to make sure that you route to the right one on the way in the door. But
Hey, you can even have the same app instance, but different URLs, right? Different domains assigned to the same app. Do it that way.
Yeah.
But then you don't end up at the same. Now the problem is that I think the problem is the database connections, right? So then
Yeah.
you could end up in every app instance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're correct. You're correct. You need separate apps deployed to manage that. But then you lose the pooling of or the lifecycle management then becomes a problem, right? Like updating the app, that means you need to update X number of apps, right? Because for every tenant, you would have a separate app.
But you're going to wind up doing that anyways on your deploy for the one app to rule them all model that's here.
Here you have one app, but you have tenancy within the app, as in like some instances set up one database connection, some other app. They all like every app instance can actually access the same databases in the backend, but not all of them have open connections, right? It's about connection pooling that this is about.
Reducing, so we have a pattern, we're observing pattern, people build applications which can do multi-tenancy. So, and with this hash-based algorithm, you could somehow manage to get requests for tenant 1 only to instance 3, for example, and then you will have connections to the tenant 3 database only here in this instance. Well, and not have the connections from all the instances to the tenant's database.
Yeah, because even what's proposed here is you're not necessarily guaranteed, especially when you're scaling the number of application instances up and down, that you're going to keep consistently hitting the same app instance. So each app instance that's deployed is going to have to be aware of all n number of customer databases. Whether or not it's got an active connection is kind of a moot point. It just seems like you would run into tremendous scaling problems as soon as you got to, a couple hundred tenants and stuff like that, and you're trying to look at what's in your VCAP services, and it's gonna scroll and scroll and scroll as the application needs to also then keep track of potentially 300 different customer databases and know to connect to it on the fly as it needs it.
But are these actual
so-
separate bindings for each database or not?
No, it's one binding. It's we have a mechanism to create a database container per tenant, which is somehow managed with the same service instance, and the application knows the tenant database. It's not a separate binding; it's one binding.
So you use the same credentials, but the database container is part of the connection that you set up with the client.
It's not the same credential, but the tenant database has its own credentials. It's just a tenant instance, so it's managed with the main service instance.
So are there actually separate, when the word customer DB are there, are we actually talking separate RDS or GCP or whatever your infrastructure provider? Are you actually talking separately deployed instances of that database instances, or is it
Yes.
just one like RDS instance, but it could have multiple customer databases on the inside of it?
Yeah, HANA, this is a use case with HANA database, and HANA can have different instances inside your space for each tenant. And you can create on the fly. So it's creating a new binding, but it doesn't land into the VCAP services. It's just on the fly binding created for a new tenant. And I think we are going too much into details. So on the fly, you can create a new binding and that a new instance of. So one HANA cloud database can have multiple customer databases as containers isolated. Then you can create those on the fly.
But why do these connections keep like why are these connections depend like customer database specific, right? Like that seems to be it's a really weird. So you basically have
Tenant specific, yeah.
You have tenant specific connections.
Yes.
And you're using a pool of them, right? Like that's a really specific use case, but it's the same service instance.
Yes.
I should, if I were you, I would like raise this internally and say that HANA needs to be different.
Yeah. That's it.
Can we add that to the RFC?
Yeah, there are some details I'm not into most probably, but yeah, on the fly you can have dedicated instances, which
But I think what's important here is that we find something similar, something in the open source where a similar pattern could exist, right? That could help justify doing this change.
Yeah, I think Chris opened the discussions and the colleagues can,
Yeah. Because it would be good to like at least understand the use case properly, and then ideally with a technology that people outside of SAP understand.
Yeah. I will talk to our colleagues and see what we can do. Okay, then this is all about the RFCs, about status. So as Greg mentioned, this one is already implemented, the system build, CNB system build back support. I think we can close this as done. And also, Stephan, I think this support for the multiple org support is also implemented already.
It is implemented, but it has never been used.
Yeah, if we discover any issues, then I think we can.
Yeah.
From our perspective, we implemented that one.
Yeah. Here I asked Derek if they if we can onboard, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we implemented this for concourses. Yeah. Okay, this is all about on the issue side. There was the CLA for concourse. Unfortunately, Derek is not here anymore, but maybe Chris knows whether this is already clarified.
Still working on it. I know there's been a long time.
Okay. And we have the provider page, CF provider page. It's ongoing. There is a draft proposal. Okay. Any other business?
I was going to say the try CF page has a few comments on it. I'll make the modifications based on them, but otherwise nothing. By next week, I'll transfer it over to the web team and keep the TOC posted about that.
At least for the SAP proposal, I request a change. I edit the code.
I saw that, Beyhan.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then we're almost on time. This time.
We are on time. You ran it really efficiently. There were a lot of things, and we did all of them.
Yeah. My ambition was to be done earlier, but yeah, we had a lot of things. Yeah. Then thank you. Thanks for your time. See you next time, and take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.